New York City is staring down a massive financial cliff, and the plan to fix it might just drain the savings meant for its retired workers.
Yeah, it's a pretty desperate maneuver, honestly.
Yeah.
It really reveals some major cracks in the foundation of the city.
Right, so let's jump right into the news hook for today's deep dive. Mayor Zohran Mamdani just unveiled a massive $127 billion budget for New York City,
Yeah.
and he faces a staggering $5.4 billion budget deficit.
Which is just a massive hole to climb out of.
Exactly. So to close this gap, Mamdani proposes a 9.5% property tax hike.
Right.
But even that isn't enough. He also plans to pull over $1 billion directly from the city's emergency savings.
And, the most controversial part of that plan is pulling $229 million out of a trust fund that pays for retiree health care.
Right, and that move immediately sparked outrage. You have conservative leaders like Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman calling it, quote, stealing from seniors to cover reckless spending.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Mamdani argues that he inherited a hidden $12 billion mess from the previous administration. So he feels he has no other choice.
Unless the state government agrees to tax wealthy earners and corporations.
Right, which is a whole other battle.
Totally. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack the official controller reports, the press conferences, the news articles, to really figure out how the city ran out of money.
And what these reserve funds actually do.
Yeah, and what this high-stakes gamble means for you, the listener.
Because, to understand why the mayor wants to read the savings accounts today, we first have to look at how the hole got so big in the first place.
Right, because you don't just, misplace $12 billion in the couch cushions. How did this actually happen?
Well, it comes down to a practice that the controller's report heavily criticizes. The previous Adams administration basically severely under-budgeted the true costs of running the city.
Wait, what does that mean? How do you under-budget billions of dollars?
They systematically hid the real price of basic services. Things like homeless shelters, rental assistance, police overtime.
Oh, wow. So they just pretended it cost less?
Pretty much, yeah. The city knows exactly how much these things cost every year. But instead of putting that real number in the budget, they would write down a fraction of it.
That's wild.
Yeah, they budgeted for the absolute best-case scenario, knowing full well the actual bill would be hundreds of millions of dollars higher.
It's kind of like taking over a household budget from a bad roommate.
Exactly.
You move in thinking the rent and utilities are covered, but then you open a kitchen drawer and find all these final notice electric and water bills stuffed inside.
That is a perfect analogy. The bills still exist.
Right, they were just hidden from view, and now the utility company wants all the money at once.
Right, they always come due. So Mamdani's new budget adds over $4 billion just to accurately show these true costs.
Which the comptroller calls an honest budget.
Yeah. But the harsh reality of that honesty is that the true deficit wasn't just a few $billion. It was a massive $12 billion gap.
Okay, so the real bills are finally on the kitchen table. But wait, his proposal says he faces a $5.4 billion gap today. How did he shrink it down from $12 billion?
Well, he managed to shrink it down by finding agency savings across the board. And he secured $1.5 billion in state aid from Governor Kathy Hochul.
Okay, but this is where the numbers start confusing me a bit.
How so?
Well, he has a $5.4 billion deficit, right?
Yeah.
But the reports also show he's unfreezing city hiring to fill 7,000 vacant civil service jobs.
Oh.
And he's funding a new 2K program providing free childcare for 2-year-olds.
Right.
How does spending more money and hiring more people make any sense when you're already deeply in the red?
I know, it sounds counterintuitive. But he argues those 7,000 jobs are essential just to keep basic city functions running. And to pay for it, he actually canceled a plan to hire 5,000 new police officers.
Oh, I see. So it's a trade-off.
Exactly. Reversing that police hiring plan will save the city $463 million by 2030. So he's shifting money around, not just spending extra.
Okay, but shifting money around still leaves us with that $5.4 billion hole. How do they actually pay that?
Well, this leads to what the mayor calls his two paths.
Right, the two paths. Let's talk about path one first.
So path one is his preferred choice. He wants to end the financial drain, where New York City sends 54.5% of the state's revenue up to Albany.
But they only get 40.5% back, right?
Exactly. He wants to fix that imbalance and tax wealthy earners.
Hmm?
But Governor Hochul currently blocks that path.
She holds the keys there.
Yeah, she refuses to raise state taxes, which leaves path two.
And path two is the current budget plan sitting on the desk.
Right, which relies heavily on raising property taxes by 9.5%.
And the controller issued a really stark warning about this, didn't they?
They did. A 9.5% tax hike pushes the city right up to its absolute legal limit.
Wait, if property taxes hit the legal limit, doesn't that mean the city is basically driving down the highway without a spare tire? Like, what happens to you if you hit a pothole next year?
You are completely stranded. It wipes out the city's ability to raise money later if an emergency hits. They legally cannot raise taxes any higher.
That is terrifying.
Yeah. And because maxing out the tax credit card still isn't enough, the mayor is forced to break open the piggy banks.
Right, which leads to the really controversial withdrawals.
Exactly. He wants to pull $980 million from the rainy day fund.
And $229 million from the Retiree Health Benefits Trust, the RHBT.
Right. And we really need to clear up some rumors here.
Yeah, because I saw a lot of panic on those Reddit posts in our source material.
Oh, totally. People are claiming the mayor is raiding pensions.
Right. They think their actual retirement checks are being stolen.
But that is completely false. Pensions are legally protected. The RHBT is a totally separate fund. It's used specifically to pay for the health care of retired city workers.
Okay, so it's healthcare funding, not the pension payouts. But that still sparked intense backlash.
Oh, absolutely. And we're just reporting this impartially, not taking sides here, but the fight is incredibly heated.
Right. You have Bruce Blakeman arguing that raiding the RHBT jeopardizes the healthcare of seniors who work their whole lives.
He calls it a double blow for older homeowners.
Right.
They get hit by the 9.5% property tax hike, and their healthcare reserves get drained.
But then Hochul's camp fired back aggressively.
Yeah, they accuse Blakeman of playing politics and wanting to cut Medicaid.
So it's extremely polarized.
Very. But if you look at just the financial mechanics, drawing down these funds during a strong economy is highly unusual.
Right, because these funds were designed for major recessions or disasters, not a normal Tuesday.
Exactly. The mayor promises to pay the money back in 2028, but...
But that relies on hoping the economy will just naturally boom, right?
Yes, very optimistic hopes. And the controller's report flashes several bright red warning signs that the economy might actually stumble.
Let's break down those warning signs, because the statistics are kind of scary.
They are. The controller found that, outside of the healthcare sector, private employment in New York City actually declined in 2025.
Wait, really? Job growth is shrinking?
Outside of healthcare, yes. And real wage growth is mostly happening only on Wall Street and in tech. Everyone else is barely keeping up with inflation.
If job growth outside of healthcare is shrinking, and we are draining our emergency funds right now, aren't we basically leaving the front door wide open right before a hurricane hits?
That is exactly the controller's concern. The city faces massive external vulnerabilities.
Like what kind of vulnerabilities?
Well, the sources list potential Trump administration policies that could cut food stamps, the SNP program, and cut asylum funding.
Right, and if the federal government pulls that money, the city still has to provide the services, so the cost just falls on the city budget.
Exactly. Plus, there's ongoing inflation. And then there's the fast rise of artificial intelligence.
Wait, how does AI threaten the city's budget? That seems like a stretch.
It's actually a huge threat to commercial real estate. AI threatens to eliminate core office jobs like data entry and basic analysis.
Oh, I see. If AI does the work, companies need fewer employees.
Right. And if they have fewer employees, they don't need to rent out massive office spaces in Manhattan skyscrapers.
So the buildings empty out and the property values plummet.
Exactly. And the city relies heavily on taxing commercial real estate. If that revenue drops, it's a disaster.
Wow, that puts this whole budget plan in a completely different light.
It really does.
New York City is attempting to balance its books by making incredibly painful choices. They are proposing maximum property tax hikes,
Right.
draining emergency healthcare reserves, and basically just crossing their fingers that the economy holds up.
It's a very precarious situation.
So for you, the listener, think about how your own local government funds its long-term promises. When politicians offer benefits today, who is actually forced to pay the bill tomorrow?
Someone always has to pay eventually.
Right. And I want to leave you with one final kind of haunting statistic from the sources to mull over.
Yeah, this one is rough.
The Retiree Health Benefit Trust already has a $98 billion unfunded liability for the future.
$98 billion. With a B.
With a B. If the city is pulling money out of that fund today just to keep the lights on, what happens when that massive medical bill finally comes due for the next generation of workers?
It's a question they're going to have to answer sooner rather than later.
Definitely something to explore on your own. We'll catch you next time.